Hey, experts listeners. I want to key you into something that we do very special here at Ops Experts Club, and that's a masterclass. We have a free masterclass called Foundations That Scale. And the great thing about this masterclass is it's for operation professionals who are growing businesses. One of the most dangerous things you can do as an operator is grow businesses on a foundations that's not stable. So in this particular masterclass, we take apart all of the inside pieces of your team, your tech, and how they're using time. And we make sure that you're building on a foundation that's stable. So if you want to check out a great masterclass completely for free, go to foundationsthatscale.com. We'll see you there.
Welcome to the Ops Experts Club with Aaron, Taryn, and Savannah. This podcast will take you behind the scenes of some of the finer details of multi-million-dollar companies. These ops experts have dealt with operations for scaling companies and well-established businesses with anywhere from small to large teams. If you've ever been deep into the details of a major company, then you know how much it takes, and these conversations are just for you. Welcome to the Ops Experts Club podcast.
Ops Experts Club, we're here. How you guys doing today? Ops Experts, Taryn, Turner, Savannah. How's the day?
Super duper.
Super dude. Taryn, that shirt is like fire. That thing is amazing.
Thanks.
For all of you in podcast land, he's wearing a very fluffy, now I'm colorblind, a very fluffy green, and it seems very like Latin, possibly Texan, just like diamonds is the way I would describe it.
I'd say Arizona. It's very like south.
Oh, you're right. New Mexico. How about New Mexico? Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, it's warm.
Good. Savannah, how are things on your end? How's Wyoming? Is Wyoming cold yet?
We're warm, but I just got a weather text notification that I haven't looked at yet, but I think that they're telling me that to beware because I think that we have snow coming. So it was like in the 70s today, though. Like it was hot, like we're wearing sunscreen today. So that's just how it goes out here where, you're boiling and then all of a sudden you're knee deep in snow. So
I love that Wyoming's weather conditions are beware warning. Like it's not like there's just going to be a trend. It's just like flashing. I just picture like flashing red lights. Beware warning. Weather's coming.
I got like 2 different buzzers that's just like severe weather impact. And I'm like, here it comes. Okay.
You lose. It's 70 today and tomorrow it's going to be freezing.
Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. Well, guys, hey, today we had a great interview with Kimberly Remedies from Rainmaker Family, just this last podcast episode. What a queen. That lady is just incredible. And I think the thing that, as I've been thinking about her episode and thinking about what they really excelled at, it was they just figured out where people fit, and I think that as we interview a lot of folks and as we work with a lot of different teams, there are a lot of teams we roll up against that they just haven't figured that out yet. So it's still super melee, really crazy. When the visionary comes on, he kind of comes and pontificates and like preaches like open-ended sermons at who knows who is listening. Yeah, I mean, who knows who this is for? And I think that he feels good. She feels good about getting it off their chest. But like you just shouted out to a room and nobody knows who you were talking to. You felt really good getting it off your chest. Nobody knows who was supposed to take that and do something with it. And then you come back frustrated a couple weeks later because it wasn't done, but there was no clarity to roles and responsibilities and who's doing what. And so I thought maybe we could talk a little bit today about some of the processes the Collab team helps people roll out so that people can really wrap their minds around. Maybe you have really good people. Maybe you know your people are really great and you're just really foggy on job descriptions and crossover and who handles what. But I do think there's a real need to create chain of command of, no, when we're dealing with this, we go to this person. And it doesn't necessarily mean that person's going to do all the doing, but it does mean we're going to have, EOS would say one throat to choke, like we're going to come back to one person to say, hey, this lives and dies with you though. So if you task down to team, that's fine, but we're still going to come to you for an answer on did it get done or not get done. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? What comes first to mind as we talk through these topics today?
I really like coming up on new teams and nobody's ever been hired with a job description in mind. They just needed somebody to fill a role. Like, you do marketing work? All right, you're hired. You end up in that spot where it's time to identify, okay, what is your job description? What should your primary responsibilities be so that you stop getting everything and we can, hone down on what you're in charge of and responsible for.
And so many clients that we come up on, kind of the reason that Collab team ends up signing on is these companies that are in that transition of whatever it takes. And so Taryn, like you said, people are brought on where it's just like you bring on a small group of brilliant people, and then all those brilliant people are just doing whatever it takes to get it done. And then from there, it's like, trying to peel apart what that means through the different, exercises that we put people through and stuff, and figuring out like where their actual sweet spot is.
I think whatever it takes is a common term that we hear a lot from visionaries that are excited about their team. They're like, dude, my team is the best. They just are like WIT, whatever it takes. And I think that that's great for a heart condition. Like if you're looking for people that have a good motive center, so it's great for like the why, like why are they there with you? They're there because whatever it takes. It's not great for the what. You don't want people who are just everybody's batting at every ball that's coming. And because what you're doing is you start wasting energies. You have 3 people working on the same project because they're whatever it takes. You talk to them all in passing about it one time. Now they're all in their own silos, all driving towards the same end. And then it comes up downstream of, oh, wait, you were working on that? I was working on that. And then you've got 3 different iterations of everybody working on the same product because the visionary didn't have one common thread that, hey, we're going to come to this meeting to do that. So, what we would always advocate for is a centralized meeting, right? Like L10 style is what we'd recommend. EOS does a great job at giving you a framework for that. Those systems are all easily downloadable, things you can find. But like centralizing your meeting, we teach it. A lot of people teach it. But how are you doing your meetings once a week? And I would say that's where you come and you begin to broadcast, hey, these are the needs. And then you have conversation around it, right? Because the conversation shouldn't be just you're broadcasting it. Should be people talking about it and what does that implicate and how does that work? So I think as visionaries, make sure you're not crowding your weekly meeting, right? Where it's all you talking for 45 minutes. You don't leave your team any time to ask questions or to process through what are the implications for that? Because what it'll lead to is pretty quiet weekly meetings, which suck. Can we just be honest about that? A weekly meeting where you have 20 people show up and all you do is talk at people is not a good weekly meeting. It puts too much pressure on you as the visionary, and your people need to talk through what you just said so we can get you answers. And those should turn into to-dos so that you're holding people accountable on, okay, Annie said that she would do that this week. 7 days from now, Annie should have gotten that done. Did it get done? Did it not get done? That's the accountability culture. So I think obviously a lot of the things that we talk about here is how can we drive down to the single choking point? Like, okay, so the single choking point here, weekly meeting, really clear. You make the pain points known. Let's process those through. And even a lot of early iteration L10s that we roll out with people is, even if it's just an issues list and to-dos, like start there. We're not even working through scorecards yet. We're not even working through the big rocks yet. We're just like, what's on fire and how do we get water on the deck, right? Like those 2 things are we're working through. But I think the next thing I would say is getting really clear on what team you have on the field. Taryn, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah. I mean, it's to that point, Annie's assigned something and Annie didn't do it. I think we really just need to ask ourselves, Annie, are you okay?
Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? Yeah, staring and good one. Bam. We didn't even plan that. So good. Do you have anything better than the joke? Because the joke was fire.
Yeah, and it's not so much that we want people to only work within their boundaries. It's more so that everybody can feel better about what they're providing for the team, and other people know who's providing what for the team. But if their job gets bigger, we can put up their boundaries, update their job description, put different things in. But people tend to not know whether or not they're doing a good job. But they're not even really too sure what their job is. If their job is everything, then it's hard to feel good about everything. But if it's very specific, then they can feel good.
That's actually a great point too on the like transitioning from the whatever it takes, even like specifically talking through like rainmakers, because they grew so fast and they had to hire on a lot of team at once to like bat a lot of balls, and their team grew so fast that not every department was able to have an L10 or a weekly meeting and a weekly check-in. And it got to the point where, there's always going to be slow points. There's really, really fast times. And then there's going to be times when things kind of slow down. And there were certain team members and stuff that they no longer felt like they had value as part of the team. And they were actually like wondering if they should be looking for another job or like what, because they weren't sure what they were bringing to the table. And then, so then we were able to recognize that and then, bring them into an existing L10 and kind of like merge departments. And then we were able to talk through them about their specific issues to make sure that they felt heard about things, because that's the other part of it, right? Is that it's not just a visionary that's bringing issues to the table. The lower down team members also need to be able to bring their issues to the table. Otherwise, it's like, what am I even doing? Does anybody even hear me? Like, do I have any value here? And so then We actually got to literally hear from team members like, yeah, I was feeling really undervalued and now I feel like heard and I know what I'm doing as part of the team and how I fit in with the other cogs so that we're all moving in the same direction and I'm not just like throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping that it's the right, stickiness.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that nobody enjoys chaos, right? Like chaos is exhausting. If you want the fastest way to burn out teams, leave it in the middle of chaos, which is you like just wildly swinging at balls that come your way because you're chasing shiny object syndrome and you're not clear on what your vision is or what you're trying to do. Don't tell your people what their roles and responsibilities are or the clear job descriptions so that they're wildly swinging at balls. Because then what it leads to is a ton of frustration for you as the leader, feeling like, why aren't you guys getting stuff done that I told you to get done? A lot of frustration on their part because they're like, do you know how hard we're working? Because they don't understand what the mission is or what the goal is. So everybody's just living in this wild chaos of it's not choked down. We haven't choked it down tight enough. So I think, Savannah, you're absolutely right that as we get clearer on, hey, this is what weekly meetings are going to look like. And then this is what's going to lead to who gets assigned what. Let's get really clear on who owns what and where the different assignments go. And then we can hold people accountable to those things, but without choking it down to this is very clearly what you're here to do. The person is left unfulfilled. You as the leader are frustrated with your people, even though they're good folks, they do whatever you want. You're just stuck. And so I think probably one of the biggest ways that I've seen clarity come in this particular scenario is like taking an inventory of your team. Like who's on the field? What are they supposed to be doing? Maybe even ask them. So we created a tool called the Gap Analyzer. You can find it on gapanalyzer.com. And guys, as we talk through these topics, opsexpertsacademy.com, like we take you through deep dives on all of this stuff where we spend multiple hours, level 1, level 2, level 3 on topics just like this today. And we give you away a lot of the tools that you would normally be buying. So if you're ever interested in any of the things we're talking about, I'd really recommend you start there, opsexpertsacademy.com. But anyway, what we give out in Ops Experts Academy, or what you could buy online at gapanalyzer.com, is the Gap Analyzer. And it's just a tool where it rolls all up. It was a tool that I invested in, created for the Collab team. We take all of our clients through. It's the starting point where we say, hey, let's take an inventory of everybody on your team. And what are they doing in the daily, in the weekly, in the monthly? And then what are they identifying as what's the biggest pain point? What they feel like is the biggest friction in the company as a whole? And then what would be a great solution to that? What's the pain point in their role, friction in the company, and then what's the great solution? And it rolls all up in one spot where you see, hey, there are big gaps on our team, or there's way too much overlap on our team in these 4 areas of business. The 4 areas of business that we categorize it as is ops, customer service, sales, and marketing. So all the tasks they do on the daily, weekly, monthly should be categorized in that way. And then it rolls it all up into a grouping. The nice thing about taking an inventory like that is you can begin to ask yourself, is that what I want Annie to be doing? That way I know if Annie's okay. Like the only way I really know that is, and man, Michael Jackson, just MJ is just in my heart and in my mind now, Taryn. Thank you for that little gift. But the only way we know if she's performing well is like if we know what she's doing. And once she inventories what she's doing, we can ask ourselves, is that what we want her to be doing? Is it not what we want her to be doing? And then we can be able to identify how do we get her out of that? So Gap Analyzer is a great place to start. I know typically we talk about Delegate, Elevate after that. I don't know if one of you two wants to kind of tackle where we go from there.
Well, I like the gap clearly shows once you get your list of all those duties, and it's called the gap, but also like you mentioned, it's not just gaps, it's crossovers. Who's doing the same job on accident, but also what kind of highly skilled people do we have that are doing things they shouldn't be doing? Not because, for any particular reason, just because nobody else is doing it. And finding those little nuggets to give people back 4 or 5 hours a week of their time of just some work they don't have to be doing that anybody else can do, and kind of moving that block into somebody else's time, utilizing Delegate and Elevate.
Delegate and Elevate's an EOS tool, right? Savannah, I know you've taken a lot of people through Delegate and Elevate. So what do you like about the Delegate and Elevate?
Well, clarity, it's like the doctor's appointment for your business. You know that something's wrong and you don't really know, and you've been like too scared to actually know. And then it's like the gap is like the blood test that tells you like what actually is like kind of not right. And
This feels like a pregnant lady talking. I'm not going to lie, but I love it. It's a really good, you're like, I've been going to doctor's appointments all the time. This is exactly how it goes.
all the time, everything's from a medical sphere right now. And I feel like Delegate and Elevate is like your prescription, kind of. You're making everyone kind of hone in and own up to the things that they feel like they're good at, the things that they love, the things that they really don't love. And so it helps you actually piece apart the gap so that you know as visionary and then also as like ops team that's helping the visionary, like where the rubber meets the road and where the quickest changes you need to make.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yep.
it's like the fastest way to actually like make those changes that are hurting your business that you maybe have been ignoring up until this point.
I think the thing I love about Delegate and Elevate, so it breaks out into 4 different quadrants, and it's like the top one is I love it and I'm great at it. The next quadrant over is I like it and I'm good at it. The next quadrant is I don't like it, but I'm good at it, right? Because there's a part of everybody's role where you're like that, right? Where you're like, I don't really like doing this, but I can't deny I'm good at doing it. And then the final quadrant is I don't like it and I'm not good at it. And you take the gap analyzer that's just broken out all the tasks they've told you themselves they're doing, and then you have them, hey, help me categorize these, because really for them, you want to get them to the highest place of excellence, right? Your best bang for your buck is the leader, right? I'm paying this person top dollar. How can I keep them in top level things that they're doing? And then just like Terrence said, how can I delegate down off of them things that should no longer be their caliber, right? This person could do it. We all could do all these things, but they shouldn't be doing those things anymore because they're too high caliber. So the Delegate Elevate is a great tool because as soon as you've identified, especially those things in that final quadrant that they're not good at or that they don't like, a lot of times that's the low level, tedious things that they've outgrown. That's the first place that you can begin to SOP and hand down to team. And I think that the thing we always tell people is that the things that you hate, there are people on your team that would actually love that opportunity because that's an opportunity for them to elevate. As you delegate down, you're giving them an opportunity to elevate up. And you've just, like Terrence said, created this new piece of real estate in your day that you can actually do tasks that require your brilliance.
Yeah, I love the delegate and elevate and taking people through it and just getting to see them think through things in a different wording. I think that's always the fun part about some of the things we bring with the gap and the delegate and the EOS L10 meetings. It's just different wordings and different ways for people to think about things. And so quadrating their work into those 4 areas and themselves realizing, oh, I am doing 80% of the things that I love doing. It's just these 20% really make me feel terrible having to do this 20%.
Absolutely. That's the truth. And I think too, like to Savannah's point earlier, there are a lot of the people that we start with that don't have job descriptions. Like that person was good at this. They started doing it. They started taking on more and more of those things. The cool thing about taking somebody through a tool like the Gap Analyzer that inventories everybody, and then moving that to a Delegate and Elevate to identify what's highest level of brilliance. From there, you've already categorically lined out everything that they do. And that is a real easy thing to then roll into a job description. Hey, so we just identified these are the things that are your highest brilliance. Let's make that your job description. EOS would say everybody within the org chart should have 3 to 5 key duties. Let's make sure we make KPIs around those main things in this role. Let's create your job description. And then it helps you not only have a job description, but then do quarterly evals where you're like, hey, how are you lining up to your job description? How are you lining up to these 3 to 5 key duties? Like the KPIs that we've created, the key performance indicators that we've attached to these 3 to 5 key roles. How are you performing to those things? And that helps them feel good. Like I'm kicking ass. Like I'm doing great to these things. Or I'll be honest, I've been choking out because everybody keeps dumping stuff on me that doesn't line up to my job description. That's not within my scope of practice. That's not within my 3 to 5 key duties. And therefore it's causing me to not perform well. And I don't feel good about myself. And that can become a conversational piece. EOS has a great tool that's called 555s for quarterly evaluations where you're talking to them just that. Hey, what do you feel like's going well? What do you feel like's not going well? How are you lining up to the ethos of the company, your 3 to 5 key roles and responsibility, your rocks, the big things you're carrying? A lot of times those are identified in the weekly L10s. And it just makes the whole system feel so much more doable. Like you can finally breathe again because you're cutting down the noise, you're cutting out the chaos.
Something else I love about it is like getting surprised by someone's delegate and elevate. Cause a lot of time when a visionary is putting the team through the gap and they're kind of like starting this whole exercise, they have things in mind that they want to start recruiting for, they want to hire for that are like in their mind what their gaps are. And then taking the team through delegate and elevate sometimes will reveal that someone that you have doing certain tasks, they might not actually be fit for what they've been doing, but the things that they love and are actually good at, they might actually fit in that role that the visionary is thinking that they need to go hire out for. Where it's like, no, you actually have someone who already knows your company in and out and loves doing this and might need like a little bit of love on like getting the experience to be in that spot, but like probably could roll into that spot better than if you hire someone outside. And so we've seen that, I think, happen in a few times when we go through these exercises where it's like, well, actually, we could just kind of scoot this person over here and then, hire for a lower role that is a little bit easier to place and, might cost a little less or something. So,
It's good. I think a lot of our recruiting projects, I would say a surprising number, because, we're running recruiting projects all the time for our clients. We always have anywhere from 5 to 10 things that we're recruiting for on a weekly basis. It's incredible to me how many people actually end up filling those roles with internal people. I mean, like, we've been spending weeks trying to find you. We've been batching through all of our recruiting projects, end up with like 150 applicants that have come in, at low end, and so our recruiters go through and they batch through those and vet them all and then interview the top 8 or 10 and then rattle up the best like 2 or 3 for second interviews. And that's usually like a 2 to 3 to 4 week process for us to go through all the iterations to get you the best 2 or 3. But it's incredible to me as we come to the end of that 3 to 4 week process, how many teams are like, hey, actually, we're going to pull, thanks so much for the work you just did. We really liked interviewing the people you had brought out there. We actually are going to escalate Susie to that role, like, because we feel like she's a better fit. And I don't think that's a fail. I think that sometimes until you're focused on something, you don't see the answers that you might have in house. But the downside can be if you haven't inventoried your people and you haven't identified what they really like doing and you haven't identified what the true needs are for the business, you don't have really good metrics on what you're hiring for. You're hiring on the way people feel. And that's a really dangerous way to hire, because if people are just overwhelmed, well, they could be overwhelmed just because there's chaos on the field instead of like, no, let's organize what we have on the field. Let's identify what the true need is. And then let's hire based on that. But let's also elevate up some folks that maybe have just been sitting in the rungs for a little while that we could actually elevate and hire, like you were saying, Savannah, a lesser paying role underneath it to delegate things down to, which I would always advocate for. If you've got people that fit like seat on the bus wise, like they're the right folks, they're just in the wrong seat on the bus. I think that always get the best ROI, the best return on your investment out of the hours you've been pouring into somebody. Maybe they should, like you were saying, Savannah, they know everything about the company. Let's pivot somebody into it. I know, Taryn, you just interviewed a guy, like for a client, we were just like banging our heads against the wall trying to find a sales manager for a client. And then we realized, oh no, wait a minute, there's somebody lower down on the rung that actually would be a perfect elevation of the role. You want to speak to that for a minute? Because I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I think it's was a great opportunity as somebody stepped up. This person stepped up to fill the gap in the meantime. So they were actually given the opportunity to shine. And although we were a little unsure at first how it would go, they just took it and ran with it and exceeded everybody's expectations. So instead of trying to find somebody outside, it's always better to promote from within somebody who's been here half a year and offer them the job instead.
I think especially, what I don't think people always realize is, for all of our recruiting projects, we'll do industry standard, right? Hey, so what's the industry benchmark for the hiring at this role, nationwide? And then also look at your region, like if you're located wherever state or city you're located in, let's see what that in your locale would be the hiring median. And then if you want us to look overseas, we can look overseas. That's fine too. I think you want to be careful on like, especially leadership roles that you're hiring overseas, just because like culture and language do really affect things, so be careful that they understand your culture, your language, what you're trying to do. Not saying that people overseas aren't brilliant people. It's just sometimes they don't understand your particular culture as a company, whereas somebody that lives near you or somebody that speaks your language or is, native to what you're doing might understand it better. But however you want to hire, we'll help you hire for it. But I will say, no matter how good they are, nobody's going to understand your culture like somebody that's been in your culture. Nobody's going to understand your voice like somebody that's been near your voice. And you're probably going to pay a premium, the higher tier that you hire up for. And I would not necessarily always advocate for hiring a top tier player that doesn't know your voice, that doesn't understand your culture, because that's going to take time to catch them up to speed, no matter how sharp they are, So is there something you can grow from within? And that was Kimberly's story from Rainmakers that we just interviewed last podcast. If you missed that, check that out. What a brilliant lady. You know what I mean? But came up through the rungs of just, I think she was a customer, came up and then started saying yes to some of the things they needed help with. And then they were able to send her to like an ops manager, to a director of ops, and they're continuing their ascension of her. And I think she's been such an incredible fit for what they've been doing. And it's enabled Stephen and Chelsea to scale, in a pretty cost-effective way, because they didn't go out and immediately hire a COO that's going to be a 6-figure paycheck easy, no matter what, and I think just realizing you've got some good players on the field. Like, how can we grow people internally until you hit some thresholds? Maybe Maybe you're at the 10 million mark, maybe you're at the 20 million mark, and you're like, I want somebody who's going to grow me to 30 million or to 40 million. Well, maybe that's a different conversation. But by that time, hopefully you have enough gross rev that you're able to make sense out of a decision to hire somebody that's of a higher caliber.
Yep. And once you've got them up to that point now, what's the best way to keep them?
Yeah. If someone's not going to stay in the same role forever, they're going to go and, shine somewhere else if you don't shine on them. So
I love KPIs that as people succeed, you can bonus them out. You know what I mean? Like, I think people that are able to knock down revenue, like give them a piece of it, give them a piece of the pie. People that are able to save you money, like give them a piece of it, give them a piece of the pie. Both of those ways are growing your bank account, whether they're making you money or they're saving you money, but like drive some sort of KPI off of excellence. Like how is this creating revenue for us one way or another? And then how can we reward them for excellence of service? But I think giving people opportunity to be bonus out based upon performance, I think is a great way to do it. Well, guys, I think we're at the top of our time with our guests here at the Ops Experts. Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. For those of you who have been listening in, always love to come here and talk things through. We've got some great guests coming up in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned for that. I'm excited for the people that have said yes to interview requests. I think there's some great folks coming just in the next couple episodes. But until then, thanks so much for tuning in. Terrence, Savannah, love being with you. It's good to be interviewing back again, folks, and great having conversation topic points as well. So hope you guys have a beautiful day, and we'll talk to you next time here.
Thank you for tuning in to the Ops Experts Club podcast. New episodes available every week on Spotify, iTunes, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. If you're curious about how some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship have scaled their businesses to the next level, check out some of our best content on this topic by going to foundationsthatscale.com. You can find the link in our bio and do your part to improve as an ops expert.